So when we talk about priorities, this is an interesting topic for myself because a lot of times I think of priorities for myself, I think of it more career driven or work driven. I don't typically write down priorities from a personal life standpoint. So this is a really interesting task for me to do, was to kind of write down priorities of where I want to go professionally, but also, in 20 years from now, how do I want my friends and family maybe to look at me? I mean, maybe it's 20 days or 20 minutes from now, but I thought it was really important to, knowing that I'm a juggler, then writing down what are those things that I want to accomplish, and kind of taking that next step. Do either any of you guys do that?
So I'm married to a certified financial planner. So every 6 months we sit down and we have a meeting where we review we have financial targets that we set for ourselves, and we also discuss professional targets in a 6-month increment. So we have that conversation, and that's probably, on the personal front. Professionally, I would say from a team standpoint, every week my team and I meet and we talk about the priorities for the week. As a team, we're constantly juggling so many different requests from others in the organization that are all important, but we prioritize as a team what needs to happen that week and what could slide to the following week.
Jesse?
So I think for me, my personal priorities they align with things that energize me as a whole, like things that I actually want to do. Sometimes, unfortunately, those things that I want to do in my personal life and what my wife would like me to do don't necessarily align all the time. So, for example, if I really need to mow the lawn, right? That gives me instant gratification because as soon as it's done, the yard is trimmed, it looks beautiful. But there's like a pile of laundry that needs to be folded. My wife would question my judgment. And so that's when I kind of have to switch what my priorities are. And it's true what they say, happy wife, happy life. So I constantly have to battle with that. I don't think I'll ever be energized, and probably no one would ever be energized by folding laundry, but that's just kind of one example of what my priorities should be. And then professionally, I think it's contingent on what my key stakeholders need to get done, right? So if we're struggling in a certain area, I'm going to focus all of my attention on that struggle with them to try to come up with a solution so we can execute upon that solution. Sometimes it's things that I enjoy doing, and sometimes it may not be something that I enjoy doing, but the times that if it's something that energizes me and it's one of the priorities, then it's like a match made in heaven. But that's kind of how I look at priorities.
That's awesome. Catherine, what about you?
So I have a few thoughts about this. So I kind of look at priorities as short-term and then long-term. So I know we're coming into June and it's summertime, and for my kids, their schedule is completely different in the summer than what they do during the school year. So that means that our family calendar changes and my priorities personally have to shift, right? Because I have to get them to where they need to be, camps or whatever, or, just make sure that I am planning my schedule to allow for the most time for me to help them do what they need to do, but also do my job. So I think, kind of looking at it on a weekly basis helps me to understand what are my personal priorities this week, and what are my professional priorities this week. In the position that I'm in at ABB in sales, we have some priorities that change sometimes based on the dynamics of the market and the industry. So it really is important for me to be able to be flexible and to be able to communicate new priorities to my team as they are passed to us. So I think I definitely try to not allow myself to become overwhelmed by changing priorities, because that happens a lot and it can be overwhelming. So just setting aside time to really plan priorities for the week, the month, the quarter is helpful to me so that I don't get into a place where I am overwhelmed.
Thank you. Yeah, I would have to agree with that. And I think it kind of goes into the next question of whether when you kind of identified, I think we all identified ourselves as jugglers, right? And knowing our actual priorities. So I think we've talked a lot about the kind of the time management piece of it. But for me, what was interesting is being a juggler and my priorities, like one of my priorities is to start running and exercising more. But yet I'm not doing anything about it. So, or be more present with my kids. It seems to me that I juggle activities, but I'm not maybe juggling the right activities, or I'm not doing the right activities to achieve my priorities. So, you know, Jesse, if you, outside of the laundry and the mowing of the grass, what do you think about that? Does you being a juggler align with kind of your actions to achieve those priorities?
Yeah, so I think being a juggler, and I'm going to admit it, I'm not the most organized person in the world. So what tends to happen with me, I was given that example of juggling and trying to fill all these different types of buckets, is that sometimes I'll forget about that first bucket, and then I'll focus on the other ones, and then I'll just completely forget about it. So that's the struggle with being a juggler who's not highly organized. It kind of messes with my time management, and sometimes, you know, when I deal with my team, since I operate in that fashion, I hire people who are highly organized intentionally, and then I stress them out. So, you know, I actually had a really good conversation with someone on my team who said, "You're giving me anxiety." And that was like an aha moment, like, oh, that's right. You're not like me. We're different. And I need to operate in a different way when kind of giving you a task or a responsibility, and I can't just like constantly like switch it up. So I'm working on that.
And so on that, I would consider myself an organized juggler. So actually what's on my work calendar is even in the mornings at 7:30 when I'm going to the gym, my calendar's blocked from 7:30 to 8:30. My husband is also on that calendar invite, so he knows he's responsible for watching our kids. I also block out if I'm doing a networking or a work dinner. That's on my work calendar as well. I asked my husband to put the same things on mine. And then as far as requests from within the organization, I actually put in 30-minute blocks or an hour, whatever it may be, to work on a specific task for myself. So A, I don't forget, and B, I've set aside time. And sometimes people will ask like, hey, can you move around a meeting to be there? And I'll absolutely be flexible to meet the needs of the organization.
That's awesome. Catherine, anything to add?
Well, I think like in terms of priorities, I talked earlier about short-term, I can't talk still early, short-term priorities, but with long-term priorities, I do have specific priorities for myself professionally, and I think I don't write them down, but I have verbalized them to those who can help me get there, right? Which I think is important to like declare your intention of what you want out of your career and let people who can help you get there know that, so that there isn't any sort of ambiguity to your professional goals. And in terms of aligning, I think so. I think at this stage in my life, I have been able to be, like I said earlier, a little bit more at peace with the changing priorities. And maybe it comes from just maturity in my profession, or the fact that my children are a little bit older. I don't allow myself to get as overwhelmed as I once did. So I think that being able to just set aside time, and what just being communicated, I do that too. I block time on my calendar to do things that I need to do, even though it may not be a meeting with someone else. It's time for me to make sure that I accomplish my objectives.
Thank you. I think that's funny, Justine, that you said I do something similar, but to go back to my priority, like all of my kids' stuff is on there. And I really did just have this aha moment. All my kids' stuff is on there. All my husband's stuff is in there. But like something, there's no time in there blocked, like for me to go walk, for me to go to the gym. Like I am thinking that, I mean, the way I'm kind of thinking I'm juggling, but I'm juggling everybody else's activity, and I'm not actually putting myself, my own personal priorities in that list of things to juggle. So thanks for the aha moment on that. That's really good.
I would also add, right, we always talk about when I'm talking, talking to my team about, right, investing in yourself. If there's like a topic you're interested in learning about, or, through our, e-learning platform, if there's something you want to watch, like block an hour on your calendar and make it happen. It's ultimately on you to make it happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.